It's nice to see you. You're Sai, right?
Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I'm Rachel.
So I'm excited for our conversation. I thought to tell about you and your work to my audience.
Oh, I'd love to share.
So you are into two different subjects which I love a lot.
Yeah,
So
I'm into two pretty interesting subjects, I would say, definitely.
so before talking about it, can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure. My name is Rachael Adeline. I come from the United States of America. I'm from Illinois, near Chicago, about 2 hours away from Chicago, in a town called Rockford. I Not a lot of people know about Rockford. People usually know Chicago, Illinois pretty well, so I usually say I'm from the Chicago area. I got into programming when I was 14 years old, but I never really considered it as a career. It was more of a hobby. I had fun doing JavaScript and HTML and CSS on Khan Academy, but I sort of just did it for fun. Um, and it wasn't until recently I started pursuing a career in web and software development. And I realized that I really enjoy it. I enjoy more of the front end aspects versus the back end or data aspects of it. And then as far as the mental health side goes, I do struggle with clinical depression myself. It's something that I've dealt with for the past 2 years, if not a majority of my life. But as far as being clinically diagnosed, it's been the past 2 years. So mental health means a lot to me, and I have been to a lot of therapy groups, and I've met a lot of wonderful people who deal with the same things that I do, and I love helping people. So
So how this passion developed in you? Because mental health is something which is related to mind, and programming is something which is related to computer mind.
yeah, that's a really good question. So I guess as far as mental health goes, like you said, how it goes with related to your mind exactly. How was I passionate about that?
Yeah.
Um, I guess I really became passionate about it because I didn't have a choice. I grew up in a very difficult household, and I was treated in such a way that my mental health didn't matter. And I learned that I had to take my mental health seriously. So I really became passionate about learning about the brain and how the brain operates and how you can better take care of yourself mentally, through things like building stronger neural connections, increasing dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin and things like that naturally by doing things that make you happy. And one of the things that makes me happy is programming. And so that's kind of how that falls into that. It is a very technological thing. It's complicated, not always fun, but I find it very fulfilling for my mental health, and it makes me very happy. And yeah, I would say that everything I do stems around my mental health because, our mental health is so important. If we don't take care of it, we can't help anybody else. So, you know, we got to help ourselves before we can help anyone else. Uh, so, yeah, I guess that's how those tie together for me.
So emotion and logic, you're into two.
Sorry, what'd you say?
You are into emotion. Mental health is related to something which is emotion, and programming is something which is into logic.
Oh, yes. And it's actually very cool that you brought that up because I didn't even think about this until now. But emotions are very hard to control. One of the things with mental health is you cannot control your emotions. And that's where a lot of people get it wrong. We say, we try to control our emotions. we try to control our feelings, but that's wrong. If you look up CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, it shows a nice diagram, a triangle. You have your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors, your actions. So the interesting thing is we can't change our feelings, you know, and that's one major part of that. And we can't necessarily change our thoughts as well, because, if we can to a certain extent change our thoughts, but for the most part, the only thing in that we can control is our actions. And in a way, we can take an action to have better thoughts. So that triangle, it keeps going back and forth. You can't have one without the other, if you get what I mean. So our actions, we take an action and an initiative to have better thoughts, but we have to physically take the time to write down positive thoughts, and that's not always easy. But as far as feelings go, our emotions, we can't control them. And I think how that ties in with the logic side of programming is I love programming because it is very logical. And sometimes dealing with depression, we are very illogical thinking with that. We don't really think logically. So I love that programming taps into that logical side of my brain, so that, it really helps strengthen the logical side of things, instead of going off of what are my feelings, I can go off of what is the most logical thing. And I think programming really helps strengthen your logic. And I would say programming is good for your mental health. I would say it is extremely good for your mental health if you do it the right way, you know. But I would say the big picture of that, of all of what I said as far as emotions go and the CBT is, we can't control our emotions. Our emotions are like, our emotions and thoughts really are like, leaves going down a stream, and the leaves are our thoughts, they're just we have to look at them and we have to acknowledge that they're there, but we have to let them drift away. We can't, hold on to them, and we can't forcefully remove them. They have to go away on their own. So I would just say the big thing out of that is to realize we can't control our thoughts all the time. We can't control our feelings. And I think people get hung up on that and beat themselves up because they think if I tell myself to be happy, I should be happy, but that's not how that works. You gotta do things to make yourself happy, and you will be happy.
So is there any particular incident or a situation that made you to go deep into study of mental health?
Well, it is a very deep thing. As I had previously mentioned, I've gotten a lot better about sharing my own personal story with mental health, but I have never done quite an interview like this before. But I know it could really help people, so I'm willing to share with you things I don't tell people typically in the public, because I think you're a great person and what you do is great, so you deserve to have things shared that could help other people. So my mental health really, the reason why I dived so deep into it was really to save my own life. I was in a very dark place around 2018. I didn't grow up in a very good home. I had abusive parents, and I just had a very negative home life. And I had to deal with things that a lot of people shouldn't have to deal with. And I'm not trying to say that I'm better, but I would genuinely never wish what happened to me onto anybody else, because, we all deserve a certain level of kindness and respect as human beings. So I really began my mental health journey by needing to save myself because I I had, I had thoughts of suicide and I had attempted those types of things, and it was difficult. It was very difficult. I spent time in mental health hospitals. I actually was in Florida for 2 months in a mental health program where I met a lot of really great people. And I wouldn't trade the horrible things that have happened for anything else, because I get to reach out and I get to tell people, hey, this horrible thing happened to me, but it's going to be okay because I'm okay. And I'm not really the best person in the world. Um, so you can be okay too. And there's so many other people that are okay. And, I believe in community, we find strength. So anytime you can tell someone they're going to be okay, um, I think that's important. So I would say my mental health, my in-depth study of mental health really came because I needed to save myself. Um, I really needed to help myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. So I would say that's where that definitely came from. And it's sort of just grown because I'm great now, and I'm really happy about that. But I know there's other people that aren't. And people die by suicide every 40 seconds. And it blows my mind that there's so many people out there that felt the same way I did, and they feel alone, but I want to say you're not alone. So, yeah.
So, can I say being more conscious about things, taking the energies very seriously, absorbing information with your senses, and expecting so much actually will be the reason for the mental illness?
So are you saying that, I guess I'm trying to work out exactly what your question means. It's a good question. I'm just trying to figure out how to process it. So you're saying, um, are you saying that mental health issues come from feeling too much? Is that what you're trying to
Taking,
say?
yeah, taking and expecting so much from the world.
Oh yeah, okay. I get where you're going. Yeah. Really good question. I would say yes and no. It's it's unique for every person. I do believe there are people that have a very wrong perception on the world that they are owed something, especially in our modern time. We have people that think, I deserve this and I deserve that. I deserve to have a good life. When in reality, unfortunately, nobody really deserves to have all the great things that we get. Um, because on a deep level, we are very flawed as a society. And I would say we are very flawed as people. I would say we naturally are inclined to be bad, and that's not a very popular opinion, but that is my view as a person. And I mean, when we're babies, what do we learn to say first usually? We learn to say no. Uh, we learn we're naturally going to be bad. And there's nothing wrong with that because we are human. That's what it means to be human. Is we're bad and we're good and we're sad and we're happy and we're complex. That's what it means to be human. So I would say there are definitely people that bring mental health issues upon themselves based on their perspective of the world, thinking I deserve better. But I would also say there's people like myself who really haven't done anything wrong to deserve what they've gotten. And I'm not even saying that to boast myself, because I do think to a certain extent we don't deserve to have amazing things. Like I don't deserve to be in America and have the right to have conversations with people openly about how I'm feeling. I have a freedom to discuss opinions that are differing than mine, and not every country has that. So that alone is a very beautiful thing, I would say. I don't deserve that, and I'm grateful for that, which is why I admire people like you that go out and ask questions and get differing opinions, because there are places where you can't do that, and it's a beautiful thing. I think opinions they can be very horrible, but they can also be to deny the fact that everybody is different is very illogical. We're all different. We all have different opinions. But the difference is respecting each other's opinions, regardless of if we agree with them. And I think that would make the world a much better place. I might not like apples and you can love them, but I'm not going to hate you for saying you love apples. you know? I would say it all goes back to perspective. And yeah, like you said, there are some people I think that bring destruction upon themselves through their own perception of the world, because I've seen it. And it's quite a nasty thing if you're not careful with the way that you view the world, which is why I encourage spirituality and I encourage seeking things outside of yourself that are bigger than yourself. Because if you're so focused on yourself, that is quite a temporary and sad thing to be focused on, because we're flawed and we're never going to be perfect enough. So when you focus on other people or a bigger purpose outside of yourself, saying, I want to make the world a better place. And you can say, well, how am I going to do that? You start small. You say, I'm going to smile at somebody at the store because I've had someone smile at me when I was sad and it made me feel great. And my philosophy is, if you really want to change the world, you just start with one person, because I believe in the butterfly effect. And each person has their own world. So if you're just nice to one person, that changes their world. Then they're going to change someone else's world. Then they're going to change someone else's world. And it truly does, I believe. It can spread across the entire globe. It might take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but it's worth it if you really want to do something for other people. I think I got a bit off a track there, but I think that's I guess I would say that's my perspective. That's a mindset that I have, and it's a more positive mindset. And that set me up for more success as opposed to people who do have negative mindsets. And I did have a horribly negative mindset, but it's taken me years and a lot of practice and a lot of reading and research to change that. Everybody can change, you just got to be willing to change,
So, what will be the reasons for this negative mind state, experiencing negative emotions, being far from the positivity, and trying not to get into um, to the negative? Nobody wants to be negative. Nobody wants to feel the negative energy. But the situations and the energy around us sometimes pushes us to that particular world. So how you experienced it and how you came out from that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I think that's critical. It's a critical thing to answer. Personally, um, getting out of a negative mindset is extremely hard, because we have what we call thought patterns, and our thought patterns are ingrained into our minds over years of repetition. So I might think, I always use an example of an instrument, I play the piano. So I think, uh, I go to play something on the piano and I might not play it right. And I think, wow, I'm a bad piano player. That's a thought pattern. And it becomes a thought pattern because you go from I'm not a good piano player to, well, if I'm not a good piano player, then I'm also not good at this. Then if I'm not good at this, then I'm not good at that. Then if I'm not good at that, I'm not good at that. And it keeps going until eventually it leads to, well, I must be a bad person. And, you know, there's something wrong with me. And it's a slippery slope. And I think that's where we get into negative thought patterns where we think, you know, we think, I think it, it seems it seems complex, but really it's quite simple if you break it down. The way to get out of negative thinking. And of course, there's people that deal with clinical depression like myself. I do have to take medication every day, and I do have to see a therapist. But at the end of the day, I still have to put in just as much work every single second of the day to change my thought patterns and to try to manage what I'm feeling, you know? Um, so I would say, you know, to to get out of negative or why negative thinking happens, I would like to go back to what I referenced before. You know, we are truly, I don't think anybody really is a good person. Um, we can do good things, we can try to be our best, but we are deeply flawed on such a deep level that we can't. We can try our best to be as good as we can, but even the best and nicest people have their moments where they get angry, you know? I have my moments. I'm told I'm a very nice person, but I get agitated. I've actually been dealing with an illness the past 2 weeks, and I've gotten very agitated and angry, you know? But the difference is, you know, you hit a point in your life where you get to say, okay, I'm angry, but what am I going to do with this anger? Am I going to take it out, or am I going to say, hey, how can I properly address this anger and use it for a positive thing? You know, because I truly believe everybody feels a certain way for a reason. There is no feeling that is meaningless. A feeling is your body telling you that you need to do something. So if you're feeling sad, your body's telling you you're sad. You got to do something about that sadness. If you're feeling angry, it's a response to something. You know, you got to figure out why you're angry. Um, so every emotion and feeling has a reason why it's there. You just got to figure out why, and you have to be willing to sacrifice and address it to fix it. And I think that's where we get it wrong, and we allow the negativity in our life to come in, because not only do some people think, you know, I've got it, you know, like I deserve this good thing because I'm a good person. But that is a slippery slope, because what does it mean to be a good person? You can't exactly define that. You know, we can say, well, we're nice and we try to do good things, but we don't always do good things, so then you're not a good person. You know what I'm saying? So it's an endless cycle where we keep going and we keep going. That's why I say spirituality is important to me personally, because you have to have something, you have to have a standard outside of yourself, outside of humans, that you can look at and say, this is my standard of what it means to be a good person, you know, because if you live by the standards of other people or yourself, you're never going to be a good person, because we constantly fail, but we're also constantly improving. So we're not evil, but we're also not good. So it's complicated, but with time and practice and looking outside of yourself, you can really get out of negative thinking. And I would just say, like, with the things I've mentioned, it's possible to do.
Can I say you have experienced the intensified emotions and the purity of the negative emotions uh, because you went and the impact that you felt.
Yeah, I've it's funny. I have a best friend of mine, and he's a sweet person. He's really great. He I feel like he deserves a shout out if you don't mind. He's called Sheets Music, and he's been a really great friend. And we have very we have deep philosophical conversations. There we go. Um, and one thing that we actually talked about was um, I experience my emotions. I'm either happy or I'm sad. There's no in between for me. I'm either happy and I feel a little sad, or I'm sad and I feel a little happy. My emotions are quite extreme, and I think most people with mental health issues would say the same thing. I can't speak for everybody. Of course, there's a time when you feel numb, but I would say that is that in between where we're usually not at. We're either extremely sad or extremely happy. So I've experienced the extremely sad. I've experienced the rock bottom, and it's truly horrible. It's something that I don't want anybody to ever experience. And the fact that people do experience it, it breaks my heart, which is why I want to help people to know that they're not the only ones that have hit so low. Because when you're so low, you think I'm the only person, but you're not the only person. Um, there are other people that feel just the way that you do, and there are other people that experience emotions just as strongly as you do. You're not a freak because you feel things so strongly. It just means you're you're very human, and to be human is to feel. So the fact that you feel things so strong just means that you're very human, and I would say that's a very beautiful thing, not a negative thing. It can be negative if you don't learn how to manage it, but if you learn to manage it, it's a very beautiful thing, I would say.
So tell me about the transformation, how you shifted yourself from negative emotions and the negative experiences to the positive one, becoming productive and constructive, and again and putting yourself out and creating something which is great for yourself. And many people struggle with this coming out from this negativity. Some people will stuck and become static, and they become still water, and they won't come out from this. And like you said, some people may kill themselves, take extreme decisions, and they don't have motivation, or they don't have any driving force. So you have experienced that mind state, uh, how exactly that is, and you came out of that, and you created something which is great again. And tell me about that change from that shift.
I would say, so I am a religious person. I identify as a Christian. I I think Christians are very misrepresented in the world, especially nowadays. We're represented as being very judgmental, very careless, very rude people. But we're not all of us. I would say there's very horrible people in any religion. And I'm not denying that I've met a lot of people that are Christians. I went to a Christian church that I ended up leaving because the people there were very horrible people. So any Christian can be a very judgmental, awful person. So I'm not denying that. I would say the difference between me and those other people is I know that I'm not perfect. And the Bible says, there's a story of a woman and she was caught in adultery. And adultery is when, uh, a woman or a man cheats on their husband. And I would say by any standard, not even a Christian standard, that's not a good thing to do, cheating on your spouse. So I love this story. It's my favorite story. And it reminds me to not be judgmental because nobody has the right to be judgmental. And there's people called Pharisees. Pharisees were people that were like the Christians we see nowadays that are very judgmental. And the Pharisees, by law, a long time ago, were allowed to stone people for not doing something right. And it was justified in their eyes based on biblical principles. That it's a long story, but those biblical principles, and that's what people get confused about, those do not exist anymore. We don't have any right to kill anybody or treat anybody badly because they've made a mistake or they've sinned or done something wrong. And that's where a lot of people hate Christianity. They think we're judgmental, evil people, but I'm the least judgmental person you'll ever meet because I've been through a lot. And so back to that story of the woman, they're ready to basically murder her because of what she did wrong. And Jesus comes along and he looks at them, and it's such a powerful thing. I love to picture it in my head and think of this large crowd of people, and they're getting ready to hurt this woman for what she did and stone her, which is it's a very important highlight for what Jesus says to them. He comes up to them and says, and they say, well, Master, they would call him Master. They said, Master, she was caught in adultery. She cheated on her husband. She's an awful human being. By law, your law, we're allowed to harm her for what she did. And Jesus looks at them and he picks up a rock off the ground and he looks at it and he says, he who is without sin, cast the first stone. And that means you who if you haven't done anything wrong ever in your life, then go ahead, hurt her. And they all look at each other and they're like, wow, I've done a lot of horrible things in my life. I'm not sinless. So they all drop their rocks and they walk away. They can't do anything. And I think that's a beautiful representation of what true Christianity is, not the modern Christianity that we portray and that has been so negatively portrayed in the media. Very hateful Christianity. It makes me sick. I almost want to cry how it's been misrepresented because that's not who Jesus was. He was a very loving person. And I would say what really saved my life was not religion, not going to church on Sundays, not having a checklist and filling out that checklist every day, but it was looking at Jesus and saying, wow, based on what I believe, that was truly the definition of a good person, because of he was blameless. He was sinless. He never actually did anything wrong. And people can argue and say what they want, but that's my personal value that I hold to be true. So I have that standard that I can look at and say, you know, I know that he was perfect in everything that he did and taught. That's my standard. And I'm going to aim for that. And, I'm not going to do it perfectly every day. But, like they say, you aim for something, and even if you miss, you still end up in the stars. You got to look for something outside of yourself, because if it's in yourself, you're never, and the people that struggle with these things, we're not happy with ourselves anyway. So why would we get a self-help book that says how to improve yourself by just loving yourself? And loving yourself is important, but in the mindset of being so self-reliant that you think I'm amazing, I'm great, and I deserve this and that. That really is setting yourself up for failure and a bigger downfall than when you first started off. So I would stray away from anything like that in the first place. But I would say finding something outside of yourself will save your life if it's the right thing. If it's not religion, that's okay. Not everybody practices religion, but in an objective thing, in all the mental health places I've been to, and I've been to quite a few, they encourage spirituality, not even necessarily Christianity or Buddhism or being a Muslim or practicing the Quran or being Jewish. It's it really is finding something outside of yourself that is so much more important than you, that you're willing to pour yourself into it. And so you might be sad, and you might be depressed, and you might want to die. And today might have been a really tough day, but you can say, hey, there's a bigger picture that's going on here. So it sucks, life sucks, it does, but you say there's a bigger picture, and I want to see that picture being finished. So I'm going to stick around and do what I can at the moment to help paint that picture and help make people's worlds better and help make this world a better place with small actions that lead to big and positive impacts. So I would say for me, I dug myself out of that pit. I believe in Jesus, and I believe in the teachings of the Bible. Take it or leave it, however you feel about that. I don't hate anybody who doesn't agree with me. I don't think they're bad or evil. I think we're all just trying to make it. And this is how I made it. And I want to tell people how I made it. And even if you don't want to go at a Christian point of view, it's easy, you just got to look for something outside of yourself. And I can't emphasize that more. The more we look inwardly, the worse it is, because we already don't like ourselves. So why are we paying more attention to ourselves inside? It's very logical. And when we take a step back objectively and we look outside of ourselves, it's quite a powerful thing. It's very, very motivating to be a better person when you look outside of yourself and you say, what's the bigger picture here, and what's my part in it? Not I'm the main character, but I'm an important character, because everybody's important. Everybody deserves to be alive, and everybody's life is valuable, whether or not they've done horrible things or they've done pretty good. Everybody's life is meaningful if you're a Jewish person, if you're an American, if you're a Muslim, if you're Asian or African American or Hispanic or Latino, or if you're Native American. I think I already said that. The point is, everybody's life has value, no matter who you are. And you could have been a horrible person in the past, but it's really who you're choosing to be now that matters, and who you want to be in the future. And also, another thing that's huge is focusing on the now so much. Not necessarily now, but I would say the past. Um, we focus so much on the past that it's a dangerous thing. The past has already happened. You gotta let it go. You might have been a horrible person. You can't change it. So worrying about it is only taking that energy that you could be using to make a better future for yourself. So I've learned, I mean, I run a blog, I run accounts, and I talk about those things specifically. So I could really talk about this for hours, you know. But I'm trying to consolidate and have a string of thoughts that at least is related. But if people are interested, they're more than welcome to reach out to me and ask me personally. I love talking to people. So yeah, like I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I want to help people. So if anybody isn't sure, you know, just reach out to me and ask me a question. You know, I want to help. So
Have you ever thought that why why we have these emotions in our body, and who injected these emotions, and making us to feel like this, and what is the intention behind the creator of us to make us feel so, and why do two human beings think in a different way? Why they have different perspectives? Why they go in their own way? Why two people are not thinking in the same way? This difference is actually creating uh, 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 disturbance.
yeah, I mean, it's easy to say if we were all the same, you know, it would be a perfect world. But if we were all the same, we'd be robotic. We wouldn't really be human. To feel is to be human, and to think is to be human. So if we really all thought the same, we wouldn't be human. You know, there wouldn't be a diverse world that we have now. But to answer, I guess, your question, in my well, I'll go first with a non-religious view. Going back to the fact I believe we're all flawed. Nobody is actually a good person, and that is also a religious view as well. But I think we can all accept, how do you define being a good person, Sai? You know, I could ask you that question. I mean, genuine. Like, I want to ask you a question. How do you define being a good person?
Like I understand uh, there is obviously the difference in thinking in people. So like you said in the beginning, we can't agree with everything that is there in front of us, and we can't disagree with everything uh, which is there. So trying to balance is something that is called as good, I believe.
Yeah, it answering that question of are you a good person is so hard because, you know, people don't think I'm a good person because I'm a Christian. And that's sad, but that's their opinion. So if you ask those people if I'm a good person, they'd say no. So then I'm stuck thinking, well, am I a good person? Because they think I'm a bad person. And then, you know, I might not like the same football team someone does, you know, that's popular in America. Um, And some people might genuinely not like me because of that, or think I'm not a good person. There's people that are that obsessed with football in America. And it's such a subjective, temporary thing that you can never answer what makes someone a good person. It's just too flawed of a question. It's a very logical question. So I would say, can you remind me of what exactly your question was again? Because I got a little bit off track.
Oh,
You said,
yeah, not two human beings things in the same way.
okay, yeah. Sorry about that. Sometimes I'm not always on the right track. So, yeah, I mean, as far as, you know, we're not the same. We're deeply flawed. And from a non-religious point of view, there are people out there that truly don't care about whether or not they hurt people. I had parents that didn't care whether or not they hurt us. They didn't care whether or not they hurt their children. So, I can be upset about that and think, why did they say such hurtful things? Or I can say, what they said wasn't true, and I can do my best to fix those things. So I think, as far as the whole negative thing, like, we're naturally negative. So you can't escape negativity. You know, people that are all positive vibes all the time, they're not truly that way. I don't believe so. Because I'm a very positive person, but I'm not positive vibes all the time. So it, it makes me laugh. It's just we there's no one thing that we can point to, like, from a non-religious point of view, to say, this is what started negativity. This is why people are mean to each other. This is that. I would say deeply we're all flawed and we all have different opinions. And when opinions don't line up, we get mad at each other. And we use whatever we can against another person, and we're mean. And that has created an endless cycle since the beginning of time that will continue to go forever. You know, it's never going to go away, thinking negatively and people being mad at each other. We've tried, but world peace is something that I don't think will ever be achievable, unfortunately, because we're all so flawed. World peace would be nice, but we're not, us humans, we're just not capable of it because we have the ability to be so cruel that we can't, you know, I have the ability to be cruel, you have the ability to be cruel, we all do. And if you deny that, then I would say you're a liar, you know? So that's my point of view from a non-religious. From a religious point of view, being a Christian, I would say we were created in the beginning of time. We were perfect creatures, as the way God intended us to be. But God allowed the opportunity in this place called the Garden of Eden. He allowed the opportunity of, and that's where we get back to this robotic world that we could live in, where if everybody got along, that would be real swell, but are we really human? If we all got along perfectly, something's wrong. That's fishy. I mean, there's a drama thriller movie where it's about a town. I can't remember the name, but everybody got along so well that it was scary. And it turns out they were all actually robots. So that's a really funny movie. But it makes me think of that in a serious way. If we weren't different, we would just be a bunch of robots. We wouldn't really be human. So, in the Garden of Eden, at the beginning of time, at the beginning of earth, because I would say God is a God that descends all time. We can't define when he started and when he began. Like when he began and when he ends. You can't. It's outside of our perspectives that we've created as humans as time. So we try to understand it, but we can't. So that's something I struggle with. I try to think, how is there something outside of time that doesn't make sense? You know? And that's something, people got to work on their own, what they believe. And I have faith in what I believe, and that's what helped me. So from a Christian point of view, in the beginning, when God made the heaven and the earth, he made man and woman completely blameless without sin. There was no desire that we have now to say no and to be mean and to rebel and to hurt each other. It was innocent. And that would have been a nice world. I mean, everybody happy, not mad at each other. That'd be I wouldn't mind that. But again, that begs the question of, are we really human or are we robots? So God gave the opportunity for the people, Adam and Eve, to make the choice. In the garden, he put a tree, and it was called the tree of life. It was a beautiful tree. Like, think of the most beautiful thing you can think of. It was more beautiful than that. It was a very beautiful tree. And God said, you have this picture of the earth, it's so vast and so beautiful. And think about the earth before we, industrialized it and we destroyed it and we did all these horrible things to it. It was a beautiful place. Still is a beautiful place, but just think about the earth perfectly, no issues, no brokenness, no hurt, no pain, no anything. That's what the earth was in the beginning. And God said, you have this beautiful earth. Like, you get to do whatever you want with it. I created you because I wanted companions. But, you have everything I could ever give you, but there's one thing you can't do. And he said, that beautiful tree, the tree of life, you can't touch that. You gotta leave that alone. If you eat the fruit from that tree, there's debates about what it was. I'm gonna say fruit. If you eat the fruit from that tree, you're gonna deal with consequences that are bigger than you could understand. So, things went well, but it was probably only not even that long. And our desire, that's when it introduces the character we call Satan, devil. And the devil came in and he hates God. He hates the things that are happy and that are pure and that are enjoyable. And he came to Eve and he said, hey, is it really that bad to touch that tree? Like, what's he gonna do to you? He loves you so much. He's not gonna do anything bad to you for touching the tree. So go touch the tree. So he kept telling her that over and over again. And eventually, I think of mental health now. If you tell yourself something so much, you start to believe it. So she did. So she went to the tree and she ate it. And it says that she was enlightened. And it's not, when we think enlightenment's usually a very positive word. But in this circumstance, it was not a very positive word. It quite literally meant that her eyes were open to the negativity that could be. And we as humans can't handle that. That's why we are so broken and flawed on such a deep level. We have a God, that is there for us, that wants to be with us, but we reject it. And we say, I'm my own God. I don't need you, And that's where we failed as a society in a lot of ways, I think. And not even just with Christianity, but I think spirituality practice in general, we look to ourselves and say we're our own gods and we're powerful and we're all this and all that. But at the end of the day, we're not even good people. So it's so going back to that story, she ate the fruit. She realized she became a god in her own eyes. And, her husband ate the fruit and he became a god in his own eyes. And that's where the downfall of man began. That's where if you're a religious person and a Christian, and that's what's reassuring for me, is I don't have to question where did all these things come from. I can be reassured and say, hey, this happened, 10,000 years ago. And I can say, it's not so confusing and so abstract. This is what happened. I have that foundation. I have that bigger picture that I can go back on and say, it's not like so wishy-washy in life. It's just whatever it is, we're here for no reason. Who knows why we're here? I would say that it's very bad for mental health. That's why any mental health place you go to encourages spirituality, something bigger than yourself, saying, hey, you're here for a reason. Your existence isn't completely meaningless outside of yourself. And that's what we're teaching in schools nowadays. We're saying, based on science, that you being here was just a 1 in a billion chance, 1 in a trillion chance. There's no real meaning why you're here. So you might as well do what you want while you're here. And I think that's also why we have we're going to a very horrible direction with wars and with famine and with pandemics and with awful things. Is if you put anybody in a circumstance and you tell them there is no reason why you exist, they're going to be pretty upset about that. I know I am. If I used to be an atheist and an agnostic, I believed that there was a God. He was evil and I hated him. But I sort of realized there's something outside of myself that is bigger than me. And, I don't have to be so confused and angry all the time and think that my existence is meaningless. I can look to God and to Jesus, and that's personally what I've done. And for other people, I'm not going to hate on anybody else who has Buddha or who has Muhammad or who has whoever else, But I'm going to say what I believe to be true as what I believe to be true. And, we're going to disagree on it, but that's okay. That's what makes us human. We have different opinions. So as far as sin and that natural negative thing, why it's on the earth from a biblical point of view and from my religious point of view, is God created us and he wanted us to be his companion, but he couldn't. It's like any relationship you're in with someone. If someone's treating you good all the time and does everything you say all the time and it's perfect all the time, there's something wrong. It's not having free will. And that's what God is about. He's about having free will. So that's why, people say, well, why did he give us the option? If he really loved us, He would have never given us that option. But if he didn't give us that option, none of us would be here today. You wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. Um, so free will is important. That's saying I have a right as a human being to exercise what I believe to be true. Um, and as long as it's not hurting anybody else, I would say all the power to you. But if it's hurting other people, that's wrong. Um, so God, the true God of Christianity, not what we have nowadays, is a God of free will. He wants you to make choices. He knows you're going to mess up and make mistakes, but he loves you, and he doesn't care if you make mistakes. And that is something that is hard to find in humans because we are so flawed. So when you can look to a God that says, I love you even though you can hate me, I still love you, that is a very powerful and freeing thing. And it really makes you want to help other people, you know. So I would say that definitely as far as that goes.
So I connected with what you said. I can also understand that you're a package. You are into spirituality. You are into philosophy, and you are into the purpose of life, and you are into psychology. And I think you understand everything because of the study that you did or the experiences that you had. And I feel wonder how how you are able to understand the psychology of the computer, and you came into full stack development, and again you are understanding, you're trying to understand the mechanism that is happening in the system, and trying to understand front end, back end, the middleware, and how the things work. So uh, I know people who are into technology. They spend the way they are portrayed, or the way they behave, or the psychological thing, the actual human thing that you mentioned. The I can't see that there's this philosophical and spiritual and religious. I don't see this kind of a deep understanding in them. But mm, this is what the whole package makes. Uh, I think human to understand.
Sorry, I'm at my brother's house and he has kids.
Okay.
Continue.
Yeah. So, so this is something which is whole. You are talking about the whole life of a human being. Uh, so, how you are able to understand so many things?
Um, I didn't have a choice to understand them. I had to save myself. And I'm only 20 years old, so I really don't understand as much as I could. Um, but I'm always willing to learn more. I'm always willing to hear other people's opinions. I'm always willing to have an open discussion as long as people aren't violent or mean. Um, I think the reason why I'm so willing to, why I have such a broad view is where I come from. I was so limited to just one mindset that I realized there's so much more out there. There's always more to learn. And if you want to, the world has endless possibilities for you. And it's a beautiful thing. And it can really, I think that alone can help someone who's depressed, just knowing there is something out there that you can learn and that you can get really good at and that you can enjoy, and it can bring you happiness, but it can also help other people. I think helping just yourself is such a selfish thing. We got to help ourselves, but when we die, people aren't going to remember us by what we did for ourselves. They're going to remember us what we did for each other and for other people. So I would just say doing things for ourselves is very flawed in the first place. So I would say the reason why I'm so open is because I am a Christian, and true Christianity actually embraces free will. It embraces differences. Um, it's not one size fits all cookie cutter. True Christianity, not the things that we see nowadays and how it's portrayed. True Christianity um, opens the idea that everybody is different, and the fact that we are different is a beautiful thing. Um, and that we need to really look at ourselves objectively and figure out on a deep level who we are as people, because if we don't, more people are going to keep killing themselves, and there's going to be more wars, and there's going to be more pandemics, and there's going to be more carbon emissions, and there's going to be more global warming, and our oceans are going to get dirtier, and people are going to keep dying, in any way. Um, so I would say true spirituality invites the unknown, as opposed to science or something like that pushes away the unknown. It says, well, we have the answer for that. Spirituality says we might not have the answer, but we're going to choose by faith to believe what we choose. And even in science, we still make that decision by faith that we're going to believe a scientific principle, you know. So I think, we, at the end of the day, we are, I would say, I think the term is triunal beings. Tri meaning three. You just say we're three-sided beings. We got the physical, what you can see, our bodies, our health. We have our spiritual. I believe we all have souls. There's something that makes you different than me, and it's obvious there's something there that makes us different than each other. You can't replicate it. You can't clone a human. We all have souls. So figuring out how your soul interacts with other souls is important. So we're spiritual, we're physical, we're spiritual, and then we're mental as well. We have brains that are very advanced. They're better than computers. We don't give our brains enough credit. Our brains have the ability to be very powerful, and we don't give our brains enough credit. We were created by God who made everything that we see in 7 days. And we are very complex creatures. We're very complex. To say that we are just like a dog or a cat is a very asinine thing to say. We are not like any other animal on the planet. We aren't like monkeys. We aren't like fish. We aren't like bugs. I mean, there's something different about us, I would say, on a spiritual level. Dogs have personalities, but they don't have what we have, and that's up for a person to decide. I'm not going to say this is the right way or this is what you should do. I mean, I will say this is what I believe to be the right way, but I'm not going to say I hate you for thinking differently than me. Life is a journey. We're all just trying to make it. And you have to accept that we are triunal beings. We have a physical body, we have a spiritual body, and we have a mental body. And to deny those things, I would say, is really stupid. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're denying the spiritual part and saying, we don't need religion, any type of religion. Religion's wrong. We need to push that away. That's not good. We have to find something outside of ourselves that gives us meaning. then they say, well, mentally, you could say mental health doesn't really matter that much. You're sad sometimes, suck it up. That's not right either. Um, Emotions are so deep. Whether or not I'm thinking a good thought affects whether or not I'm nice to people. So I'd say that's pretty important, you know? So to deny the spiritual mental realm is very idiotic of someone to do. Um, I would say the reason why I think so deeply is, I was an atheist and an agnostic. I was very all about science and about the books, but then I realized even great philosophers, you can look at Aristotle, you can look at Epicurism. That's a different. It's the practice of true happiness is Epicurism. But even when you look at that, it all points back to Christianity, and I just think it's really funny because I'm not saying Christianity is the way, but from what I've experienced, it has saved my life. And not even Christianity. I mean, Christianity, the word Christian means little Christ. It's not like, it's not like religious. It literally means to emulate who Jesus Christ was as a person. So when I say I'm a Christian, I'm just saying I'm trying to emulate the person who Jesus was. And he was a very loving and accepting person. But he also had standards, You can't deny that he had standards, Hating someone was like murdering them. If you hate somebody, that's the same as murdering somebody. Um, and the main teaching that Christ said was someone came up to him and said, Master, what is the meaning of life? Basically, what's the point? And I think that's where we're all at, What's the point? What do we do to be good people? And he said, everything that has been taught in the Bible and everything that I will ever say can be summed up and simply as love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. So you have to love yourself first. You can't hate yourself and then love other people. You got to start by loving yourself first. Then you can love other people properly. And then it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And I'm blanking right now. I feel awful about that. I'm so tired. But I think that one small thing is profound, and I think that's a good place for someone to start. What does it mean to love myself? And in loving myself, how can I love other people? I would say just start with that. If someone's confused and they don't know what to do, I would say, well, first start off by not hating your existence. That's a sad thing. Figure out how you can like being with yourself. Because if you can't be with yourself, then you can't be with other people. So I would say, and that's a Christian principle. And that's what Christ taught. So, how can you love yourself? And in loving yourself, how can you love other people? I would just say that that's what drove me to really dig deep into the fact that we are three-sided people. There's three different components to us. And, I would say if you figure out what it means to you, then you figure out how to live a purpose-filled life, and you're going to be happy regardless of what other people think of you. And that's what I've gotten. And it's a very special thing. And I wish everybody could have it. But alas, I can't force anybody but I can say this is what I did, and this helped me when I wanted to die, and it could help you too. So, yeah.
So why do these collection of thoughts, the mind needs a physical body? Have you ever thought that you got life and this mind is connected with the physical body? Why do we need to feed our bodies and consume things in order to maintain the metabolism in the body and make it active in order to make our feelings and thoughts and emotions? Why do where and after that, after our physical body, stops working, if if we die, where these emotions and thoughts and feelings are going? Have you ever thought in this way?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, everybody thinks on a level what's going to happen to them when they die. Um, they did a poll, I think, of people in their 20s, and the most things that they thought about was sex, and the top two things was sex and what's going to happen to them after they die. So everybody thinks about that. I thought about it when I was an atheist and agnostic. Um, and to go back before answering that, diving into that, I would say, um, you know, as far as what we feed ourselves and teach ourselves, I do believe, we are flawed people, and we're so deeply messed up that we need to every day put in something positive. Otherwise, we will be negative. So that's my simple answer to that question. And then as far as, death, you know, I can't speak on it from a non-religious point of view. I mean, I can speak on from what I believed, and I didn't know what I believed. I I searched for a long time trying to figure out what 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 life after death is, and with Christianity, there is a teaching, and it's heaven or hell. Um, and there's a lot of people that hate on it and think, if there was such a good God, why would there be a hell? And I would say, good question, because I thought the same thing myself. Why wasn't a Christian for a long time? Um, but it goes back to free will, and we're not robots. God gave us a choice and said, hey, I sent Jesus to teach you these things. And there's a beautiful thing that Jesus did for us. And he, since we all, as we talked about in the Garden of Eden, we chose to be our own gods. That created the fall of man, which is just increasingly getting worse. It put within us something that is very evil and will only get more and more evil as time goes on, which is why you see the things that are going on in our world. Um, so when Jesus came, in the Old Testament, which is the teachings that Christians don't follow anymore, um, they had to make sacrifices. Jewish people had to make sacrifices or atonements for their sins being wrongdoings, sins being not living up to what God's standard was. And if people are interested in that, just Google it and make sure you find a good, reliable resource, not something that is um, biased in one way, you know. Um, but you know, uh, we had to atone for our sin against God and against each other, because we kill each other. Well, we murder each other, and we hurt each other, and we do these horrible things. So there has to be a recompense, which basically means there has to be a payment for that. We have a judicial system here in America, We have judges that we appoint that handle cases. I'm sure wherever you're from, they have that as well. I'm not sure where you're from. Um, but we have people that handle that. So it's not like a Christian thing to just say there's payment for when you do something wrong. The world says that. If someone murders someone, we put them in jail, you know? So it's not something that is just a religious thing. You can observe it in the world working around us. So, Jesus came and God said, I see you guys are struggling. You're trying to do right and do what's good, but you can't. You're human. Remember, there is no good human. So he's saying, I see that you guys are trying, and it really breaks my heart. We got ourselves in this situation in the first place, but God is so kind that he said, it really hurts me that you're struggling this much. You don't deserve to struggle so much. And so he sent Jesus, who was fully man, fully God, and he took that place, that perfect sacrifice, that perfect atonement for the sins that we have, the sins as people, not being good enough. And he died in our place because we all, and with Christian teaching, we all deserve death because we're flawed on a deep level. We are not perfect. We all have the natural inclination to want to hurt other people. And we all have the capability to murder. We all have the capability to steal. We all have the capability to do really horrible things. So, God said, I'm going to send him, and he's going to be that perfect sacrifice that you can look back on and say, hey, I am a flawed human being, but what Jesus did was good enough for me. So you don't have to be mad or upset, God. I mean, God's a very loving God, but just saying that he doesn't get upset or believe or doesn't get mad about things is wrong, because we're imago Dei. That means the image of God. We bear his image. So we're made in his image, so we love, we get mad, we get angry. We're in his image, so looking at each other, we're really looking at God. Except for he's justified in his actions. We did hurt, we did do something against him. It's not like we did not do anything. We murder each other and we hurt each other and we turned our back from him. So him being mad at us is completely justifiable, except for even then he said, I'm going to help you out. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And that's why I chose to be a Christian, was, it's a God who says, even though you are imperfect, I still love you anyway. And you're going to mess up because you're not a good person. But I still love you anyway. And what matters is that you keep trying. And that's why I chose to be a Christian, because I've never felt so fully loved before, ever, because nobody can love you that way. And it's a great thing. So, Christ, he died for us so that we don't have to keep sacrificing and keep trying to be perfect. When God looks at us, when we've trusted Christ and said, hey, he died for us, I'm going to rely on that instead of my own works, instead of my feeble attempts of trying to be whatever a good person is. I'm going to look at what Jesus did and trust in that, and that's called salvation. So, when God looks at a Christian, he doesn't see our mistakes and our flaws and the things that we did to him or to each other. He sees Jesus, and Jesus was perfect, which is why I follow his teachings, because he was a perfect sacrifice. And Jewish people, when they made sacrifices, they had to find a perfect lamb. The lamb had to not have any spots on it. The lamb had to be young. It had to be innocent. So, and they shed the blood of the lamb. They sacrificed it to recompense or to make up or repay for what we did wrong, as people. And that's why Jesus came. He was that perfect sacrifice. There had to be something to end that, because otherwise we were stuck in a loop of trying to be perfect, but we can never be perfect. So that's why he came, and he died so that we didn't have to. So getting into what happens after death, I mean, my own personal conviction is there's a heaven and there's a hell, and everybody has that choice, and I will never say to somebody, well, you're going to go to hell and you're a bad person. I would never say that. But I will say, based off of what I believe to be true, if you don't have salvation, there is a place called hell, and it's real. And, God doesn't want people to be there. That's the thing. He doesn't. And Christianity isn't this box, and it's not this checklist. It's really just walking through life trying to do the best that you can and loving other people, love yourself and love your neighbor. That's what that is, So it's not this complex evil thing. At the end of the day, we have free will, and I can say, I'm gonna go and smack someone in the face. That was my choice. I had the choice to do that. What consequences I suffer from that, that's what I get. They might smack me back. Who knows what's gonna happen? But we all have the opportunity to look at ourselves and realize, wow, I will never be perfect, but there's someone who was, and I can trust in that, and I can work towards, I'll never be perfect, but I can work towards something that is perfect, realistically, not based on the world standards or by man's standards, but by what a higher being standards would be, and it's very stable. It's a very good foundation, and that's why I'm still here today, and that's why I'll tell people what helped me. Not everyone's gonna agree, and that's okay, but I'm gonna do what I can to help people, because I want people to have what I have. I'm very blessed and fortunate to have what I have, despite of outward circumstances, despite being very ill right now. I actually am going to go to the doctor again tonight to figure out what's wrong with me. But despite that, I'm still a very happy person, because I have something bigger than myself to look forward to, and I can help other people, and I get to talk to people like you who are willing to listen, and it's a beautiful thing. Being a human is a beautiful thing once you figure out how to manage your feelings, you know?
I can see, I can understand, I can uh, observe you going into too deep things into the life and understanding the purpose of life. And I can understand, you know, the values, and you have your self values, self morals, and you have a kind heart. I can understand that you're very sensible person too. I can understand that. But how this fascination, this passion for you to come into technology and become a full stack developer, which is completely different. You're interacting here uh, in mental health. You as a mental health advocate, you are interacting with human beings, trying to understand uh, things which have feelings, emotions, and the pure things which are being created by God, which are created by the nature, right? And again, when it comes to your profession, you are trying to understand the psychology and the mechanism and what is happening, the functionalities of the website or the mobile application, or trying to understand the back end. All these things are completely different. So can I say you being a good human being, having a positive intentions, and having understanding the whole understanding the purpose of life, all the spirituality in you, the spiritual person in you, and uh, the 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 devotional person in you, and the person who believes in love so much in you is making you to understand the thing that is created by human being, which is computer, and the software easier. Can I say that?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I mean, humans are like computers. I mean, our brains are like computers. So I love technology, and I think technology and us as people can actually be very close. You can find the similarities. I would encourage people to find the similarities for themselves. And with anything you do, find the similarities between what it is to be a human and what you're doing, and it makes it more meaningful. But I would say for me, you know, like I love technology because it taps into that logical side of my brain that's sometimes hard for me to use, being a very emotional being. Um, it 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 everybody has to have a hobby, you know, everybody has to have something that they can do and enjoy their time on, otherwise we're going to go crazy. um and I would say technology has been that for me. Sitting there and you know, programming makes me very happy because it makes me feel like I can control a part of the world. um you know, um I can control something, and everything is very out of our control. I think anyone would agree. We're very out of control of our own worlds nowadays. And to be able to sit at a computer and create something that you can control, and you can print out a value, and you can build a website that you want it to look the way you want it to, is a very empowering thing. And it makes you feel like you can do something with yourself, and that you're putting something into the world that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And I would say it's important for not just for programming, but for anybody to figure out what that is. What do you put into the world that's valuable and that makes you feel better at the end of the day? And you know, I think computers help people, programming helps people. We would be able to have this conversation if it wasn't for someone who wrote the code for this app and, you know, created these things. So um, even just and not and being able to create something that you can control and be happier with, you can really change people's lives. I know someone who's writing an app that I actually am going to fund and work with them on that helps people with their mental health. And that's an app. That's something that a programmer can write, and that can change the world and make other people happy. So I would say the way programming fits in with mental health and with everything is it's good to tap into the logical side and to create something that you understand and that you can control and that, you know, can help other people if you want it to. Yeah.
And also, can I say, uh, a person in you, a part of a person in you who understands, who is understanding the beautiful things uh, of life in general, and the purpose of everything. That understanding in you uh, helps you in understanding and creating a software with a great user interface with which human can connect and communicate and uh, can able to access this very well.
And I would say, that doesn't just go with the program. If you're passionate about something, you're gonna do it as best as you can. I just happen to be passionate about programming. Um, Other people are passionate about different things, but yeah, certainly if you're in the right place mentally and you're a three-person being, you can most definitely use programming in a way to help other people, and it can help you to build things way better than you could have because you're not just thinking of it as a one-sided thing as well. You're thinking of it as almost ourselves. We're try beings. And I think of a website. You got the HTML, you got the CSS, you have the JavaScript. You have what you see, what you don't see, and what makes it work. So I think computers and us aren't so different, and I think I find a lot of comfort in technology, and the fact that we can create things, and it's all very similar to who we are as people, and not a lot of people make that connection, but I made that connection and I enjoy it, and I want to help people who are programmers to understand their mental health better. And because, it's not easy sitting in front of a computer for 10 hours a day. It can be quite boring and quite lonely. So, you know, uh, your mental health matters. And yeah, so no matter what profession you're in, you got to take care of that first before you do anything at all, ever.
You offer any service? You treat people. You give advices for the mental uh, problems that they face. You offer any service? You have any company?
I run a Christian Instagram account called aheartforjesus.co. Um, I talk about Christianity. Anybody's welcome to reach out to me and ask me a question as long as they're nice. I run a personal blog where I talk about more general things, not always usually from a Christian perspective, but mostly just mental health, sort of like um, I guess, what does it mean to be a good person? Like I would talk about something like that on there. And it does tie back into Christianity, but I do try to stay away too much from religion. But I mean, it would be wrong of me to do that based on what I believe because I believe I'm supposed to tell the people what I believe. So, you know, for me to say I'm 100% unbiased and whatnot, I can't because I am biased. I have a belief, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to be biased. you just have to admit that you're biased. And I will say, not even necessarily biased. I mean, I was an atheist for a long time. But I do have something that I believe in, and I'm going to share it. Whether or not someone wants to, agree with it, that's their choice. But I still think that some of what I have to say on a non-religious point of view could be helpful to people. So, I mean, anybody's welcome to reach out and have a philosophical question or a discussion with me. As far as offering specific services for that, my goal one day is to start a mental health program. That's far in the future, but I'm not going to let that stop me from helping people right now. I mean, I don't hold any degrees to treat people, but I truly do believe anybody can counsel somebody. I think we get caught up in status and wealth and education, that we forget that we are all humans and that we all understand each other because we've all felt what the other person's felt in some way. So I don't have a degree. I'm not a clinical therapist or a psychologist, but I am willing to talk to anybody that wants to be nice and has questions.
It's wonderful to hear you and great things from you. I'm sure your words creates a lot of impact in listeners who are listening to us from anywhere on this planet, and I'm sure what you said will make them think and may change the way they think or may change the way they do things. Because some of the points that you mentioned actually is making me to think.
Hey, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I I will. I'm more than open to having a phone call with you. I'm open to having a phone call with anybody that wants to talk civilly. Um, because we're all in work of something bigger than ourselves. And I found what it was for me, and I truly believe that can help other people too. Um, but not everybody agrees, and that's fine. But I'm gonna do my best to help who I can. And yeah, I guess you know, I try to do the best that I can to help people, and that's what I do at the end of the day. If I think something's gonna hurt someone's feelings, I try not to say it, but I try to go about it a way that wouldn't hurt them. But I have to be honest at a certain point, and I have to say what I believe. So you know, um, yeah, I guess that's what that is. I don't. My intentions isn't ever to hurt anybody purposely, but I do have opinions and I do have values that I hold myself to that um, other people might not like, and I can't stop them from not liking me. I can just say, hey, I think I'm doing what's right. I have faith that what I'm doing is right, and you know, what other people think doesn't matter. And that's a hard thing with people who have mental health issues, to step back. And that is a huge thing for me. To step back and disconnect myself from what other people think of me and say, I'm doing at the end of the day, I'm doing what I think is right and what I think is the best. And that's all you can do, is try over and over again until something sticks and it works and it's the right thing that you can do for yourself.
So at last, do you want to say anything to the world who is listening to our conversation?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
At last, do you want to say anything to the world who is listening to our conversation?
I would say Never forget how beautiful you are. You're such a wonderful person. And, we're all flawed deep down. We're all messed up. So don't feel like you're the only person that's messed up. Trust me. I feel like a horrible person all the time. But, um, you know, maybe we are. And what matters is whether or not we let that define us. If we let our thoughts of ourselves define us, we might think we're horrible, but just because I think I'm horrible doesn't mean I'm actually a horrible person. Um, and I can prove that to be true by asking someone like Sai or a friend or, someone else who's not myself. So I would say, you're doing the best you can. Keep trying. And, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here for you. And call me, message me. I have an email, contact email. I have ways to connect. And just, do the best that you can every day. And you'll be okay. As long as you're trying to take one small step towards improving yourself, it 365 days in a year, 365 steps towards making yourself better is a pretty good start. Even if you just start with two, you double that, you triple it. You can do it. Believe in yourself. If someone like me could do it, you can too. That's what I would say.
So, yeah. So, as a mental health advocate, as a person who's into software development, so as a person who understands uh, uh, the deep meaning of life and purpose of everything, what do you say about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
I've watched some brief clips and I feel bad because on this preparing for this interview, I haven't really gotten to do much. I was able to look at some of the clips you had on Instagram because I've been so ill and I haven't really had time. I have school and but from what I've seen, you connect a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life and different parts of the world, and that is a beautiful thing. And I would encourage it. And I'm so glad to be a part of it. I feel extremely honored that I was able to talk with you and able to talk with whoever was listening. And I think what you do is a beautiful thing. And you truly tailor your questions to the person you're talking to. Like I can tell that you ask me questions based on what I was answering, and that's a pretty big deal. Most people come in with set questions. You made up your questions as you were going because based on what you were feeling, and that's a unique thing. What you have is very unique, and I would encourage to keep doing it because it's made my day better getting to talk to you. Um, so I know it'll make other people's day better as well. So I would say that you do make a huge difference, and it's important.
So actually, I thought to ask you more questions, but it's already a long length video. So
Hey, there's always a
actually,
you know,
yeah,
I'd be willing to come back. I really enjoyed this.
yeah, because you're into web development. I have a degree in software engineering. I have a master's in software engineering and graduation in computer science and engineering. And I'm also interested in understanding this mental health of different country people who are into different parts of the world and who are into different professions. I want to know what they think, what they are experiencing, rather than knowing about the technology and knowing about the softwares. And um, I also got trained as cloud engineer, AWS cloud engineer. So I have tech background completely, but I'm doing something that is not my job. This is something
Yeah,
that is I'm doing. to project different country people's thinking and experiences, what they felt, what they experienced, and some of the some of I think if we listen to so many people, I think there is common thing in every human being. There is a common thing that is emotions and feelings. Like I think this is one of the great conversations uh, 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 in my collection. I did more than 400 plus interviews, and I never met a person who is into mental health and also into logical thing, the computer thing. So that's amazing. I'm sure the people who comes to my show next after this, they will see other perspective. They think that there is another important thing other than the regular job that we are doing that you said. I'm sure they'll think about it, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of contacts and a lot of call requests after uh, this video on YouTube or anywhere on uh, any podcast. So that's amazing to have the great understanding about the complete whole life. I think you learned a lot from your experiences.
Yeah, and I really thank you for that. I really appreciate those words. They for someone with mental health issues, kind words really fuel your everyday life. So that also goes back into like making sure you're doing something good for yourself every day. And I definitely say this experience with you is something good that I did for myself this week and even this month. So I feel a great honor and a great pleasure to have spoke with you. And um, yeah, I hope that someone listened to this and they left feeling a little bit more open to what life could offer and a little bit more excited as to what life could offer, because there's a lot that life can offer if we choose to let it.
I'll put your details in the description of this video. People who find the video on YouTube can see you and the work that you're doing.
All right, yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much again. I had a great time. It's nice to have someone sit and listen to what you have to say.
So in future, again, I'll contact you and I'll interview you again, which is completely about the professional work that you're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to ask more questions about it.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel, for giving me opportunity to interview and giving me your valuable time and spending your valuable words on my show.
Oh, thank you very much. And you're just as valuable as I am. So don't forget.
So can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yeah, you can put it anywhere you like. Wherever people can watch it. I don't care.
Yeah, and yeah, can I also put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, keep going, keep doing what you love, and keep spreading positivity and positive energy, and affect more species on this planet with the positive attitude that you have.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. You as well.
Take care.